So, good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome. I am Faraz from Let's Unbound, and over the next 1 hour, we will be going through the various aspects around PSAT, ideas to try to turn this whole aspect from a mystery into an actual plan. Now, why PSAT and why now? I guess one of those things is it's the lowest stakes way to really preview the digital stat in a way. And for the juniors, it doubles up as a national merit qualifier, so it's really worth doing it right in that way. So, what would you really learn tonight first? And you'd have a clear picture of what PSAT is. This isn't including how the new section adaptive format works, but what shows up on the reading and writing and math, and how timely really feels. Second, how PSAT scoring works, how it really relates to the SAT of 1600 scale, and what your report actually tells you beyond the single number. Lastly, what do you do when scores, and how do you really read those sub skills and choose between those various tests as well eventually, and create a realistic timeline around you for you once you're in grade 11. How do you typically move across? Now, just again, in terms of the logistics, just to try to keep everything clean, please keep your cameras off and mics on mute. Just drop any question that you may be having on the chat section, which I'll be taking towards the end of the section itself. And I would also request if there are any technical difficulties, you could flag them out to Kanushri. She is co-hosting this presentation along with me. Now, without further ado, let's just look at the quick roadmap for today. We'll be seeing the PSAT. We'll be looking at the syllabus as well. And as always, giving you across an approach that we feel is very much feasible for any student who wants to take up with PSAT, and then leave you with a lot of resources for all those students that are really avid about admission. Now, moving ahead to let's unbound before we move into the aspect of the PSAT. Let's just discuss the organization behind the presentation today. So let's unbound began with a focus on skill building, which empowered elementary and middle school students with STEM, life skills, and mentorship. Now, as these students progressed to high school, they started seeking out for college admissions guidance, and that's where we listen. We evolved our services to seamlessly integrate storytelling through application into our already well-established mentoring programs. Now, by combining personalized learning, skill development, and strategic admission support, we guide students from their early academic years to top global universities. So today we have impacted more than 4,000 students across 25 countries, delivering more than a lakh 25,000 hours of expert mentoring. Our commitment to excellence has earned us a 4.9 out of a 5 global rating. We're really proud to have partnered with organizations as Harvard Students Agencies and Arizona State University Prep Digital in the past, where we have really ensured that our students have received a world-class educational experience. So at Let's Unbound, we don't just prepare students for exams, but we prepare them for life. Now, moving across to our visionaries, my co-founders. So before we move across again to the topic, we just have a quick look into their profile as well. Amol is a serial entrepreneur. He's an education visionary. He's got experiences with Tata and Exceed, which is India's largest school edtech platform. He has helped scale impactful education solutions across 2,000 schools in 6 countries, impacting more than 250,000 students. He's really known for his ability to blend business thinking with on-ground realities, and has been really instrumental in helping startups from IIT Bombay and beyond succeed in the education space. Nishant, on your right, he's a mentor, he's an educator, and he's really the brains behind many of the learning pathways we share with our students, and also a lot of ideas that we'll be sharing across today. So, with 14 plus years of experience across academy and industry, he has counseled more than 1,000 students in his design curriculum solutions from K-12 to MBA programs. He's an alumnus of SP Jain, a top-rated educator and a proud mentor of change under Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog. Now, this is a quick look at my own profile. So I have spent the last decade within consultancy after my own MBA from I've worked with organizations as Citibank, Standard Charter. I've also worked within the education space within Crimson and Added Education. And currently, I am co-founding this Let's Unbound with my other co-founders, Nishant and Amol. Now, moving across to the topic itself, since now we're done with all of the introduction. So we'll be now moving in to the whole aspects around PSAT and how it comes across with College Board. So as a lot of you guys would know, this is again a product of College Board itself, the same organization that does SAT. Now, when people say SAT, they usually mean normally one of these various options, right? So you've got PSAT 8, 9, and then you've got your NMSQT, which is also, in a way, your PSAT 10, and it is taken in your grade 10 largely. The practice SAT, that also serves as a national merit qualifying test within your grade 10. So the roots of this go back right to 1950s when the National Merit Scholarship Program launched to recognize top academic talent. So in the 1970s, the College Board practice SAT and the National Merit Qualifying exams were combined, creating what today is co-sponsored, as really as, your PSAT or your NMSQT. The College Board later added the PSAT 8, 9 and PSAT 10 to the schools could benchmark earlier. So those versions were never count for your national merit. The 2015 and 16 redesign aligned the PSAT with the new SAT itself, the evidence-based reading and writing, the algebra, forward math. So, and obviously no guessing penalty as well. One quirk that still matters for scholarships, PSAT tops out at 1520, and again, that's not at 1600, which your normal SAT one is. So that's a quick look at your PSAT. I'll now just move across to really understand this in a little bit better picture. So let's create the bigger picture here that the PSAT, not that it is full form that way, but that's how it's typically known as. It is known as the practice SAT. So that's not an admissions test. That's one of those first things that I would like to really put across there. Colleges do not see your PSAT results. So treat this as largely a low stake but a high earning activity that you could do. It has two main jobs basically. First, the ninth and 10th, your eighth and ninth graders. It's a realistic baseline in the digital format, same as your Blue Book app, the built-in Desmos calculator. It would have your on-screen highlighting, the strike through, and pacing of doing everything on that device. So that is typically as the same. Second, which is largely in your 10th, which is your PSAT 10th, and that doubles up as your NMSQT. That's the National Merits Qualifying Test. If you're aiming for national merit, students within USA, this one really does matter. So in otherwise, if you're not really going up to for those national merits per se, then they're really there to get yourself familiarized and getting yourself feedback. And also, adding this across, your ninth and 10th results are sometimes also used for summer programs. So there are various different, use case scenarios that you could be looking across at this, even if you're not looking at that national merit. So it is also a systems driven test for schools devices. You use those same devices, you make those same login work, and it gives you that same consistent feel of the SAT itself. So should you prep specifically for the PSAT itself, it wouldn't come across as a yes, as you would be saving those intensive efforts for eventually once you've decided between your SAT and ACT. So the exceptions are if you're realistically on that cusp of the merit, or you having a little bit of that test anxiety and you really want to understand which kind of position you are, or you're really looking across at this from this perspective of, let's say, getting into one of those top reputable summer programs, this PSAT presentation would really make a lot of sense for you. So now, why PSAT is important? So first, and how do you really typically look across with it? So first, you see your progress. Right. If you're a student that has taken PSAT 8, 9, or PSAT 10, this course sits on the same College Board scale, as you can track this growth very cleanly. So it's also calibrated with the SAT score itself. So it's a very reliable baseline rather than just any random number. But at the same time, I'll also urge that it's not a very direct connect to PSAT itself. So if you're topping out your score in PSAT, it doesn't mean that it will 100% give you a top out score is within SAT, but it will still give you a very good understanding of which area you're going to be really staying across. So that comes to that second part, set a target. So use the report to spot that bigger opportunity. So look at, is your bigger opportunity within reading or writing where you're going to be topping out your maximum scores? or your math. So what we normally see in students taking PSAT at a very early stage, we're really able to stage this out. The student is doing very well in maths. He's a student that may be going across and taking a lot of different subjects and topics around mathematics. And that makes us sure that when we're doing SAT itself, we need to aim out the maximum score in maths. We could go and get an 800 and complement that score with anywhere between 700, 750 within reading and writing. That really gets you into that right kind of a SAT score. So how to use this as a target is to really find out which is your strength area between the two topics of reading and writing or maths. As you know, over the last years, PSAT has been deliberately designed in this specific way to collaborate itself with the SAT paper itself. And thirdly, as I was also just saying now, it also does give you your AP potential. So when you're looking at these two subjects, and you, as I've just said, doing well within maths, it starts to give you a very good understanding. Would you want to go and explore various APs around that subject area? So it also does help you understand your own AP potential. So these are, those various reasons, as I will put across, say that, what SAT is, why SAT is important. And now let's move across to the structure and timing of the PSAT itself. So let's take a quick snapshot, right? The digital SAT, it's a paper of 98 questions in 134 minutes. So that's about 2 hours and 14 minutes. So there again, there's a very close replication to the actual SAT paper itself. It runs in the reading and writing first, which is again 2 modules, 32 minutes each, 27 questions per module. Then a 10-minute break, and then you start across with mathematics, which is again divided up into 2 modules each with 35 minutes in each section, 22 sections per module. So once a module ends, it locks, and then you can't go back. So you have to take each module as a test on its own. And you have to be clear that you have to close your reading and writing, make sure that you have gone back to all of those questions that you have flagged across, have answered them in the right way, and then close and move on to the next section itself. Now, beyond that, it is also an adaptive section. It's adaptive bisection. So this is the same aspect. Students who have seen our presentations on SAT, even your PSAT does come on this adaptive or difficulty level where your performance, for example, in reading and writing module 1 would determine how which section that you'd be typically lining up across within module 2. Would it be the easier one? Would it be the hard one? And how that really comes across, it's because of how you would be getting the kind of questions within module 1. So within the next slide, we will go a little bit more in detail of this aspect. But yet again, this is a paper which is adaptive. The details would just follow through. Now, lastly, pacing plan, which is extremely important in this area, and how I would really suggest run 2 laps per module. So lap 1, which is your fast harvest, clear all quick, clean items. So if something, for example, looks sticky, it looks a little bit difficult, flag it and move on. Then have another lap 2, which is more precision work. So all of the work that has been flagged, go through them in that very specific order and then close them, and then, try to shift across to the next section. So use the platform to your advantage. The built-in timer can be shown or hidden. Show it to the time box question. Have this one understanding that I'll spend 45 seconds and then I'll flag it. Hide it if it's even distracting. So you have that complete openness of how you would like to use all of these different tools. Keep a scratch paper flowing. Raise your hand before you run out. Make sure that you can take down those notes at that right speed. And use the break intentionally. Obviously, between exams, between the two sections itself, make sure that between the two there you have just gotten up, just taken a small walk, just reset your eyes, and then move across to the next section of maths. And when you're going in maths, just repeating that whole same laps again, where you go through a fast harvest, lap 1, and come back into it with lap 2 for those precision work. Remember, 45 seconds is a very good benchmark. If it's going more than 45 seconds, move over to the next question. Right. Now, how does the PSAT scoring works? Now, each section, reading and writing and maths, has 2 modules. So module 1 is, the same kind of difficulty for everyone. It's a blend of easy, medium, and hard items. Couple of, let's say, unscored experimental questions are also embedded. You won't know which ones, so treat every item as real as possible. Now, moving on, how do you do in module one would really route you to module two. If you did well enough, let's suppose in module one, you unlock the harder module two, otherwise, you will be moving into easier module. Think of module 1 as largely a gatekeeper. Why does it really matter? The PSAT is a section adaptive, so your score line ceiling directly depends on which module you're able to unlock. The easier second module caps your possible scale score on a lower, and the harder second one would be really opening up those upper score bands. So, how does the scoring specifics work? So, each section converts to a scale score from 160 to 170, your total PSAT score would be then between 320 to 1520 by adding up the two different sections. Now, what are the main things that you need to understand? If you are getting into your harder section, you open up the layering of moving into 760 per section itself. So then eventually coming as closer to your 1520s. Now, what are the key takeaways? No penalty for wrong answers. Never leave anything blank. That is one very important thing. Guess even if needed be. Because there is nothing that you will be losing across by, just marking an answer. There is no negative marking. Front load focus in module 1 to unlock your harder path and keep a higher ceiling. So that is the most basic thing that you need to get right. If you're looking at those high PSAT scores, you may be looking them for your scholarships. It is very, very important for you to really have that module 1 locked in the right way. And then use the pacing properly, use the flagging tool perfectly. Wherever you're going about that 45-second mark it back to for your second round, and go through it in a manner where you are able to attempt as many as questions possible, so you can go from stage 1 to harder stage 2 and have a maximum chance of scoring. Remember, no negative marking. Now, the scoring basics. So the first bubble, right, the PSAT 1520 max. The PSAT tops out at 1520. That's 760 in reading and writing, 760 in maths. Think of it as a full dress rehearsal that uses the same scoring ruler as the SAT, but the ruler stops a little bit short at the top. Now, move across to the side where you see the SAT at 1600, that's your max. On the SAT, each section goes to 800 for a total of 1600. Those extra 80 points live in the very hardest question territories, problems the PSAT intentionally doesn't include because it's not really normed for those earlier students to be having those understanding. So that deliberately those 80 marks have been left out. So when you're looking at your PSAT score, it is not really scoring you out of 1600 in a way. You're only looking at 1520 worth of that overall topic. Now, let's go back to the right-hand bubble. No top-end SAT items on PSAT. So that's the key. The PSAT measures almost everything the SAT does, as I've just said, except the hardest scale ones. Imagine a ladder where PSAT has, rungs from 1 to 19, and the SAT adds rungs of, let's say, 20 to 21. You can prove you're solid up to through, let's say, rings up to 19 on PSAT, but to claim the top score within SAT, you still need to prepare for more topics, and that's where that problem does come across. Now, going back into your left hand bubble again, the common scale and how it is aligned. College Board uses a common score scale, so a PSAT total is a good approximation of your SAT starting point. If you post a 1200 on a PSAT, you should expect that the SAT in that neighborhood when you sit down would be around that same area. So if you earn a 1520 on PSAT, that's phenomenal, but it is not an automatic 1600. You still need to demonstrate mastery on those various other topics that would be typically added across on. Now, moving scores in the 10-point steps, mechanically, both tests report a 10-point increment. So, you've got 1580, your scores will be moving between 1580, 1590, 1600. So, with the digital adaptative format, fewer total questions, each question can move or score more between to use to it. So basically what it's doing, accept a bit more bounce test to test, especially near your ceiling. That's normal, right? Don't expect to do a 10 or 20 point wobble. You'll be normally having those differentiation between your various attempts around the 10 points itself. So bottom right bubble, baseline, it's not a guarantee. Colleges don't see your PSAT in a way that they will be using it for the final thing. Treat it as a diagnostic compass, not really as a verdict. Which section has the bigger opportunity is one question that you're typically trying to get answered. Your reading and writing is the math section. Which families are leaking points? So is it your main ideas versus your transitions if you're going for your reading and writing? Or is it within algebra or is it within trigonometry? Thirdly, does your profile suggest you'll shine more on SAT-based tools, or you may be also that ACT style and speed? So even that kind of answer questions can be typically answered through your PSAT. Bottom line, the PSAT is your baseline. It is not your destiny. It tells us where you need to start and not where you really need to finish. So from here, you start creating your targets really clearly out for the PSAT, for the eventual SAT examination itself. Right. Now, just quickly moving across to be answering the actual dilemma today, right? Do you do a PSAT or do you not do a PSAT? So there are a lot of families that you really ask this quite constantly. Do colleges ever see your PSAT scores? And if they really that they're really not seeing, then why really do bother? So one of those first things that I really put across of taking PSAT, that it is the safest and it's the lowest stakes way to experience your SAT digital platform. The blue book, the section adaptive timing, the Desmos, the online stream annotation, that single morning, really removes a lot of unknowns before the official SAT. Now, for juniors, it's also the National Merit Qualifying Test, which can translate into real scholarship dollars and impressive accolades. Secondly, the summer school applications. So many selective summer schools and enrichment programs want an external academic signal. Some will accept PSAT, 8 or 9, some may even take 10. So, for example, John Hopkins Center for Talented Youth lists PSAT amongst the tests they consider for certain grade bands. It is a covenant recognized metric if your school administers it. The point isn't that PSAT is required everywhere. It's that having a score really expands what you can submit and what more that you can be typically applying for. Thirdly, it's very helpful in understanding your preparation. So treat the PSAT as a diagnostic itself. Use the report to really spot the places where you are strong at, which are the areas that you'll be largely weak, where the places where you're losing your scores at. And you could also use your PSAT in a way to really decide between SAT and ACT. Lastly, it also does help you check across with your AP potential. So the College Board AP potential tool, piggybacks on the PSAT data to suggest the various AP courses where you'll have a larger, more statistically to succeed across all. So it's largely not a destiny, but it's really smart planning and really understanding where your right potentials typically lie on. Now, moving on to the next point of our presentation today. So what is the overall syllabus that we'll be looking across at? Right. So reading and writing has changed in two big ways, the format and the focus. So firstly, we'll be starting with the format first. Now, instead of long passage with 10 questions, it's now short text with largely one question over and over. That means no more getting stuck on a passage and losing 10 questions with it. If one item feels sticky, flag it and move on. It's just a single point, not a whole set of questions, just typically related to one paragraph. Content is now broader. Expect quick hits from literature, including poetry, humanities, social sciences, and your STEM blurbs. Even the bulleted notes or brief notices. Treat poems like a short text. Look for the central claim, tone cues, and line that actually does the job of that the question is trying to ask. So the new item type, you'll see a lot of logical completion. Pick the best final sentence for the short paragraph. Now, here's how you need to go across it. So firstly, read the stem first, so you know what's the job that last line must be doing. The conclusion, the contrast, and then the explanation. Reread the final two and three sentences, predict the move, understand where the summary would be, try to look at the cause and effect, and what the overall answer could be. Third, test each choice in that place. Check for continuity, reflect on, if it is really coming across as clear, and then transition to the right typical kind of answer. Now, grammar is going to be extremely important within this whole aspect. It is still, the one of the most important things that you need to be looking across while you're preparing for this reading and writing on the PSAT level itself. So your sentence boundaries and punctuations, look at your comma versus semicolon versus dash. Avoid these kind of mistakes, right? Look at the transitions and coherence. Look at your concision and precision around it. Say it cleanly, cut a lot of repetition, choose the words that really fit into the sentence with actual meaning. Right. Now, moving across to your next slide, the digital PSAT within mathematics. So what has been typically changing across here? So your Calci is everywhere. Desmos is now built in. On the digital PSAT math, the calculator is on every single item. The Desmos is built in right into the blue book itself. That means that you can graph a model, drop a table, trace intercepts, and do the check solutions in seconds. And you could still like the handheld. You could still have that handheld for quick arithmetic, but then no longer, because of this of being on your screen itself, the hunting for the keys or those problems, they really go away. So your Desmos, the calculator being introduced into it, has really been that one specific change. Now, moving on to the grind in mixed, it's not just at the end. Students produced responses now sprinkled throughout the section instead of leaving it right at the end. Treat them exactly like multiple choice. Pick your method, verify it, with the help of your Desmos, and enter a final value. Decimals or fractions are typically fine. Just avoid mixed numbers. If the prompt asks you for the value expression, don't just overlook it. Plug the solve variable back and type the numeric result. Nothing about the grind really makes it scarier. It is simply an answer with no typical choices. Right. Otherwise, you've got these other various differentiation within algebra, functions and models. You've got those various tools that have also been typically added across within the graph, table, and the trace. There are various changes that you could also look within the workflows. So you could talk on those workflows that really save that time. So if an answer must be a number, you could love to always come back and look at those various choices. Start in the middle and see which way to move. If the structure is messy, then you can typically come back to the various specific pattern. Right. Now, lastly, you do also have these various flags that you could, typically put across, and that really gives you that right kind of pacing itself. So wherever you've put those markers, you can always come back and look into those specific changes. So these are the overall math sections that they've also changed across. Now we're just moving into our plan itself. Right. Okay. Right. So now this is a timeline that you could be typically looking across at. And your timeline would be largely starting with, let's say, maths readiness. This one part that I have created, which is for students, as I've said, the path A, which really fits in with students who finish Algebra 2 or Geometry by the end of 10th. In March to April of this 10th, run the diagnostics for both your SAT and ACT, and then try to pick a lane. Use the May and June for your light skill building, and then your 10 to 12, will be a summer prep. So take the official, SAT within August and October. You could be either deciding also between September and October for it. Immediately debrief the report and then run a 6 to 8 tune-up week. And and immediately, if you have a clear or high run scores, you could also move to your official third attempt, which will be between March till April. Now, moving into the students which are moving into your path B, that fits are taking students within Algebra 2 during your 11th year. So from September to November, do your diagnostics. That's when you can lean into your reading and writing while keeping math really fresh. Once key algebra unit is done, run the December-February core prep and then take the official first one on March and May. And then eventually your second official one would be coming around May and June. And if needed, for the last and final attempt, you could look at August and October within your senior years. Right. Now, closely, just giving you a quick look at our PSAT roadmap as well. So we always do start when we look with students. We also see the diagnostic, the current status of the student while looking with the PSAT, where then we start to create your personalized study plans. And then we move into the one-on-one live tutoring and finally the exclusive strategy sessions where we do help students understand between which SAT or PSAT that they should be typically looking across at. Right. Just now moving across to our other product, which is the digital SAT lab as well. So for all of those students who have joined us across in 11, you could also just straight look at the digital SAT lab that we do provide. It does give you a very good understanding in terms of our own the SAT diagnostic of your current standing, in which we could give you that personalized understanding of your own current SAT scores and how you should be trying to go across and maxing out that 1600 kind of a score. The way that we do provide our sessions, that's 90 hours through foundation prep, strategy, and live mock, where you've got 45 hours of contact hours and 45 hours of self-learning through practice sheets. And lastly, 60 hours of mock tests as well, which are basically added up as 20 mock tests. The other programs that we do also provide, right from elementary to middle school to high school, various different products from maths, coding, public speaking. We do provide you coaching on APs as well, apart from that overall understanding towards admissions itself. Right. These are quick some success stories of students that we have typically worked with and have gotten these top kind of SAT scores. Right. And this is just another example of someone who pulled off a perfect SAT score within maths itself. Right. A quick view of a student that journeyed to Dartmouth while preparing across with us. He was a kid that got a SAT score of 1550, a really broad profile moving into academic research, internships, worked within an NGO, founded it himself, and was a national level basketball player. Along with that, being a solo singer, performed with at a lot of different charity events, which eventually landed him his seat within Dartmouth. Every weekend, we do different webinars on different topics on admissions abroad. So, like this week, we were looking at PSAT. Next weekend, we may be looking at the SAT section itself, or maybe moving on to APs. So, do look at our Instagram page where we'll be putting out the topic for the next SAT session. Right. Now, just showing you this various platforms that we do share our information on as well. You could use the QR code at the bottom to get access to all of these various newsletters, again, on different topics around admissions itself. And this is your two QR codes for the WhatsApp group and our YouTube platform, where you could see a various different amount of topics, again, being discussed around admissions itself. This is a free SAT diagnostic that all of you guys could attempt on. Sorry, that you could actually attempt to cross on, and we'd be really happy to share the feedback with you on it as well. Lastly, if you'd be looking for the complete package in terms of understanding how you could move towards that perfect PSAT score and then the SAT score and then your overall college dream, you could use this QR code on your screen to get access, and then we would be setting up a one-on-one session. Right. So now we're done with the session today. We'd be just requesting that I'll be concluding the session off now, just having a little bit of a bad breath, and we would be then connecting again next week. Thank you.